Welcome to Pip Pop Life. My name is Matthew Koch. Today I want to give a little bit more about what this is all about who I am, and about what's this all about when it comes to this Pip and this Pop. Because is it a pippity pop, a poppity pip, a hip hop hibbity hobbity hip? It's not quite that, but it is at the same time. So I want to really just kind of give a little bit more around who I am, what this is all about for me, in inviting you into the world of Pip Pop. And I don't use those terms too lightly. While they have a little flair to them, I suppose. It's euphonic, I'd like to say, at least to me, to my ears. I really just want to get down to business around clarifying some elements to what that entails, along with giving you a little bit more about who I am and why, I guess in some way I should be of interest in breaking through some of these concepts and breaking them down with you, while also hopefully giving you some idea of the credibility of this individual in front of you. So, like I said, my name is Matthew Koch, and going by various forms of the first name and the last name throughout my life. Matt, Matty, Mateo, Mateus, which is quite common for me these days as a more or less a member of the Brazilian community, along with other names that go with Matt. And the last name Koch, coming from my father by way of his dad, or my opa, who said, hey, we're going to go with Koch when he came over in the 1920s to New York City. I suppose he said in American English, they pronounce the CH ch. So he went with Koch, even though the last name is pronounced in various forms, including Koch and Cook and some other ones that aren't so appropriate that I've been called, is particularly in those adolescent years. Crotch was a very popular one. And sometimes those telemarketers calling in the day would ask to speak with Matthew Koch. And when I'd inquire Matthew who, I'd often hear a click. But anyway, besides my name, that's just the label I've been given. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for that one. Actually, my sister was in on that as well. Since I was the youngest child of 5 and she was the only girl, I guess a little tidbit on that is she cried when I was born because she wanted a little sister, and thinking maybe I'm the last one. I'm not a little sister. I would be her baby brother, as I still am today. But my parents decided, hey, let's give Suzanne a little something special and say, you get to choose the name of this baby. Though they did narrow it down to 2, Andrew and Matthew. So she went with Matthew. So I'll take it. Not that I necessarily had a choice. But thank you, Suzanne, my sweet sister. So with that being said, my name, you got that one down. I'm also kind of looking at the credibility factor. Who I am, what I've gone through, what I've been through to get here, to more or less be in front of you speaking to things like presence, like pain, like how to manage and respond to pain, how to take that with a sense of purpose rather than an aspect of avoidance and escape or cover up. How to also really develop that sense of presence to ourselves, to who you really are, and more so to what you really are. And with that, I'm going to continue around just coming from my background. Most of my last 20 years have been spent with the professional title of a psychotherapist, marriage and family therapist, psychologist in some areas of the world. Brazil more or less uses psicólogo. And although I'm more of a psychotherapeuta, I'll take what they throw at me. And so that's kind of the general profession that I've led throughout the last 20 years. And prior to that, a lot of teaching gigs I worked at. I worked in both elementary through adult education on some fronts. So a teacher as well. And kind of eventually got back to graduate school and pursued my master's in counseling and my career as what I currently, act as, which is a licensed psychotherapist in the state of California. So carrying on into more or less what I also have delved into further, that kind of brings me to what I've described again, this as a psycho-spiritual collaborative. The element of spirituality, the element of our true essence, our soulful essence, as I've really kind of come to call it, and what we really are as we've come into the world, formed as a human being. And I look at those elements of the human and the being and consider, is the human an adjective or is it a noun? Well, I know what the being is, more or less. That's not an adjective. That is what we are. So when we conform to the life that we have in this human form, the human being, it to me is the essence of it is that deep soul, that spirit, how we are existing before we even incorporate the body, to then carry it through this life and then to death, afterlife, or whatever comes next. And to consider what we do with that as long as we have this current life journey, how we can really embrace it, which is leading more into the presence, really embracing no matter what is happening, no matter how we're feeling, no matter where we are, with whom we're interacting, that we really can be present to ourselves, to the environment, to the other or others, to the space in which we are occupying. And in doing that, it goes into kind of what I like to think of as being here. The power and presence, another term I've kind of thrown out there around the name of my channel. And the here is here, listening here, and listening here. So it's a here, and it's a here, in terms of being present and listening to ourselves, listening to the deeper self and what that directs us to be and to do and how to respond. In many ways, we've kind of just fall into, reacting with generally what a lot of people have looked at in the world of psychology, for sure, the fight or flight response. Absolute necessity to get to where we are. Absolute important in just getting through and living and surviving to be where we are. Yet there's another F that's been added more recently, I guess, I suppose, was freeze. So we kind of have this instinctual, which makes sense. Naturally, we survive. The survival instinct is as natural as it gets on the baseline of a human existence. But is it the fight, flight, freeze response that when we are challenged, when we are threatened, we immediately go there? Or how do we manage and alter that response? I look at the freeze being added more or less because we've been able to be so sedentary, so dormant. We don't really have to do what we've had to do most of our lives, which is grind it out wherever we are, surviving the Tyrannosaurus Rex or the pack of wolves attacking. We obviously will figure it out. I don't want to get mauled, so I'm going to fight or I'm going to flee. Because if I freeze, I'm a meal for that ferocious creature. So in thinking about that, I think now where we don't have to fight and we don't have to flee, we've also learned to freeze And in that freezing, we sometimes get stuck. We get stuck in what I've looked at as this cycle of just kind of this human existence over and over, thousands and thousands of years. Sure, we live, hopefully we love, and we survive. But in the midst of our lives, it's doing more than that. It's seeking more within ourselves that then we can extend outwardly to others, to the environment, and really embracing more or less no matter what is happening to us. There's an experience of human that I believe, of being a human that is so kind of just innate. It's so significant. That experience of suffering, and how as we suffer, we're going to do it. It's as human as anything, if not more human than anything we do, besides one other thing, which I would say is loving, which is, I think, more tied into the essence or into the being part of the human. So we already come in with that. It's when we incorporate the human, at that point is when we suffer. And then we complicate, overthink, we overdo. We take on so much excess, and it becomes confusing, overwhelming, exhausting. Part of life is the grind. Part of life is sorting through the challenges, the setbacks, the pain, hence the purpose of pain. It's how we respond to that pain. Rather than evading it, covering it up, numbing it out, let us almost in some way embrace it. Sure, if we're going to get killed in the immediacy of an interaction or a situation, well, get to that fight or flight. I wouldn't say freeze, but get to the reaction to survive. But generally speaking, in this day and age, 2025, we don't need that immediacy, that impulsive survival reaction. It's still deeply embedded in us. So without a doubt, it is one of our automatic go-tos, if not the automatic go-to. But rather than the fight or flight or freeze, which is what I'm called the F3. And sometimes I like to say, so if we got to go to those all the time, they become so immediate, so automatic. So what I say to the F3, the fight, flight, freeze, is F you. F you. Let us slow that down. Let us come back to ourselves and find a different pace. Obviously, unless we're about to get mauled, we're about to get killed, we have a gun to our head, we're at war, we're getting chased by wolves, by a pack of coyotes right here in my canyon. So yes, there is appropriate times for that, but to necessitate that as an automatic response for everything is wrong. We must be able to manage that. Hence, slowing the process down. When the pain comes, the threat comes, we don't have to automatically engage in the F3. So it's finding the one, in a sense, the F1. I'm finding oneself. I'm being present. I'm hearing here, and I'm coming to self. I am being present to self so I can move forward without reaching away from myself to automatically hide, to automatically escape. So with that being said, it is about learning and strengthening that sense of presence, the power in presence within ourselves. The gift that we've been given is life. And with that life, the being is incorporating flesh. And we have the tools, we have the vessel of our body, of our mind, of our conscience, of our heart, and of our soul to utilize and further cultivate a deeper sense of fulfillment, a deeper sense of purpose, so we can go forward with clarity, conviction, passion, and for so much more, both in who we are and what we're here for, but also in how we are with others, how we do this with the world, the universe, as vehicles to make it better. So with that being said, I just wanted to, kind of clarify a few things around who I am, and you'll get to know me more and more, hopefully in this process of engaging in my channel here. Our channel. I want to look at it as an investment in us, in furthering our responsibility to the human role, to do more, to love more, to be more. So with that being said, the Pip Pop Life is a part of us. It's certainly something I'm embracing more and more as I continue to, kind of sort out this journey to eternity, of which we're all a part. So, well, thinking about the Pip Pop Life and what that is, the Pip Pop, the Pippity Pop, a little of that. But I like to say the Pip Pop, the Pippity Pop, we don't stop, ever.